Recorded in the darkest dungeons of the Basement of Death studio, Josh, Troy, and Ty present a show dedicated to bringing you, the listener, into the adventure right along with them. Pick up your sword or load your bolt gun, but don't forget your helmet, because it is time for some Playin and Slayin. Actually live from the BOD studio and a remote partner, our fourth chair joining us from up north. You know what? It is Playin and Slayin live. I think we're live streaming and we're recording.
We could be. I don't know if I actually pushed the button on Twitch. This is kind of like our dry run.
I got excited that we were actually live.
But we might be recording videos, so you could, maybe there's a YouTube version of this sometime. All right. But we'll see how it turns out. This is the big experiment since we haven't been in person in a while.
But being in person is fun and cool. And we're going to talk a lot about some in-person gaming on tonight's episode. Get back to the basics of hobby accountability, where most of us fail, some of us maybe succeed, and pick some new charities. Some acquisition, I'm sure that took place. Just kind of run the gamut of the usual banter. And then we're going to have a host to host to host to host 4-way Q&A over some interesting questions and topics, kind of a free-form discussion. So it's going to be fun. It's cool to actually sit at the same table and record. We've been remote for the better part of 18 episodes, roughly.
Yeah, right. I don't even remember. Yeah, it's been since last March, right?
Yeah,
so
it's been a minute.
Yeah.
So, we're going to do that thing. But before we do that thing, it's very important on this episode 53 that we recognize that when you're playing and slaying, it is important to stay hydrated. So this What Are You Drinking segment goes out to Stu in Nashville, because I'm going to start dedicating this to different listeners and people each episode. And then that listener gets a beer the next time I see him. So
nice. Yeah,
I figure that'll be a fun way to, connect with our 6 or 7 listeners. And I won't have to spend too much money because we only have 6 or 7 folks I'll be buying beer for.
So if you're listening, let us know you're listening, and you can get a beer from Ty.
All right. Speaking of what we're drinking, Josh, what are you drinking? Hold it up for the camera too.
I picked up a City Lights Brewing Company coconut porter. It's pretty good. It's brewed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's pretty good. I like it.
So it's a coconut porter, not a Willy porter.
Correct.
Good.
It's good. I like that.
All right, Bryce. I'm very excited to hear what 196-pound Bryce is drinking.
Let me get it up for the camera here. The nice tall glass of Aquafina. It's not Aquafina, it's just water.
That's just us trying to slip in some branding. Aquafina, hit us up. You know the details.
Yep.
City Lights, hit us up.
Troy, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Liquid Death. I have to get that in front of the camera too. Liquid Death, which is mountain water. Murder your thirst is what it said. So I had this for a while, and I'm like, I actually said next time we're in person, I'll drag it out of the bottom of the fridge. And it is wonderful, crisp, cool water.
Shout out to Liquid Death.
So it's probably just really expensive water is what it is. So makes it taste better.
Man, we got to find some new co-hosts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm drinking from the BOD's fridge, Lakefront Brewing Easy Teasy. It's a green tea ale. Lakefront, a core brewery here in Milwaukee, which interestingly enough, on the label it says established 1987. I had no idea they've been around that long. But right down the street from our friend Dan at Cubic Shenanigans and his riverfront recording studio.
Yeah, you can see it out the window from the studio, right?
Yeah. So easy teasy. It's got a little bit of a green tea taste. Otherwise pretty light, but it was really muggy and humid today, a little warm. So this is a nice kind of summer refreshing ale. And then I'll probably have a coconut porter before we're done.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. What are we playing? Who's playing some games? According to our list here, somebody was playing Seven Wonders Duel.
Yeah, so we dragged out, and I think as we get into this next one, Ty, that you'll talk about, I had a 2-player weekend a few weeks back, where I think Friday night it was you, Ty, came over on Friday night, and we broke out, and I won't spoil it, the next game that we're going to talk about. But then on Saturday, it was just Ben and I online, and Seven Wonders Duel is on Board Game Arena. One of the good things about Asmodee, I think, buying that, we're worried about, I think, what were some of the bad things. Some of the good things is more and more of the Asmodee games are showing up on there. And I have it over here on the shelf, somewhere over there. But Ben and I pulled it out, and I forgot how good this game is. It is really, and again, even online, it's actually so easy to set up. What I remember is like you have to get set up because you're actually making a pyramid of cards and they stack on top of each other. And then instead of doing the drafting from each other, as you pass cards around, you're drafting them from the board. But when you pull a card out, that may then uncover a card that's underneath. So you really have to think about, especially, and some of them are face up and some are face down. So you can see that, hey, there's a face up card that my opponent might really like, but if I take that one, then he's just going to go and jump that. Should I do something else? So there's a lot of real strategy around, a lot more interaction between than you do in like Kevin's Seven Wonders, because you really got to pay attention to what the other person's kind of doing. And then there's the instant win conditions around military, which, and I'll apologize. So it's not, it has very much the same flavor as Seven Wonders, but really kind of different mechanics in how they do it. But so you have an instant win with military, where there's a military track, and as you buy the military, you real time move that track back and forth like a tug of war. And if it does get all the way to the end, where you have that much more military in somebody than your opponent, that's an instant win. Doesn't matter anything else, you instant win. And then there's also a science instant win if you get all six or seven symbols in the cards. What's interesting in that one is you don't, because of the randomness of the deck, you don't know if that one's actually being in play until you get kind of towards the end of the game, because you don't know what all the cards are. So there's been times so you can have somebody playing for that, and then you realize that there's only 5 symbols on there, or your opponent got the only one of the symbols or something else like that. But you do have to pay attention because you don't want somebody to run away with either of those things. So you can't just ignore military or ignore science on that. So it was a lot of fun. And then Ben and I played it, I think, the next weekend or whatever. We got 2 or 3 plays on that, and it just made me remind of how much how fun the game is and really solid it is. So
I would almost rather play that than Seven Wonders anytime. I think it's a better. They took some of the fun parts of Seven Wonders, and obviously 2 players, you have to focus it for that card pyramid and selection versus dealing and passing cards. But I think it's a better implementation of the mechanics, and I think it makes for not that Seven Wonders is complex and difficult, but Duel just streamlines it and makes it incredibly accessible to sit down and play and get a few games in. Yeah.
The only thing that may be a little bit what do we notice that might be a little complex if you weren't playing online is because the cost to buy things, you're always buying from the bank and things like that, but the cost difference are a little bit more there's a little bit more to it than there is in Seven Wonders, where it's just 2 to buy from anything else around. So, and that was what was nice again about playing online, is it does all the calculations for you, and it tells you even on your turn how much this will cost and whatever. So you don't even have to do any of that calculation and stuff in your head. So, so fun game. It was fun to kind of bring that one back to life. That's been out there for probably quite a while now. I know Seven Wonders is on its 10-year thing, and that game's probably 5 or 6 years old at least. I can't remember exactly when that came out, but
yeah, definitely a good game. I like that one.
It
Right,
was
Ty. Go our other half of the 2-player weekend.
yeah. So it was that same night we got Imperium, which is a new game just released end of May from Osprey. They released Imperium Legends and Imperium Classics, so 2 separate games, but they can be mixed together and played 100%. Like the rules are written for you to have either game. But it is a deck building, I guess, civilization style, like empire building game. So you have your deck, which is one of the 8 empires in the Classics or Legends box. So I think when we played, you were Persia and I was the Roman Empire. And what is incredibly cool about Imperium is it is completely asymmetric win conditions for the different empires. So the Romans are winning through a different mechanism than the Persians, or the other. King Arthur's court is one in Legends. There's can't even think, Assyrians, a number of other Vikings.
Did you hit Greeks, Romans? Yeah, I think
Macedonia,
right. There was Vikings, and
you've got this selection of all these empires, but it's deck building in that you're buying from a market row. You can acquire cards to add to your deck. There's revolt cards, which are bad. They have no usage, and if the revolt pile ever runs empty, it's like an automatic loss because your empires have spun out of control. And you're trying to advance your empire from a barbaric state to an empire, basically. As you develop and advance the cards into your deck, you're getting these nation cards into play. Every time you reshuffle, you add a nation card. Once you get through all your nation cards, you then have the chance to actually develop like technologies and specific great leaders and add those in. So it took a while, I think, to set up and get the hang of it, but then it was relatively intuitive because on your turn you're either playing, you're taking cards in, or you're getting rid of those revolt cards. And it felt like it was a really tight, close game the whole time. We weren't sure how it was going to end. There's just enough interaction. Sometimes in deck builders, you don't really do anything to the other player. You just work on your own deck and take your turn. And I felt like there was enough where you could play cards to attack or interfere with your opponent. So I'd imagine in a larger player count game, there's even more of that as each empire is doing it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, we just played 2 and it was enough to kind of, again, you weren't like, I didn't know exactly what you're doing, but you had a good, like, all right, I kind of know what ties to do, strategies over there. And what I need to worry about, because you guys you were more building cities and they were giving you points and things. And I was all about just attacking things and taking things over.
You had to like assimilate those other cultures and bring them in.
And it plays up to 5 or 4?
I think it's up to 5. I don't have the box with me, but
okay.
And it would, because there is some, you're playing. You all do some things at the same time, right? You can kind of, So it's not like you. Yeah. There'll be some downtime, but it wouldn't be terrible, I don't think.
Because once you take your active turn, there's like a cleanup phase where you're going through and doing stuff that doesn't affect anyone else, so the next player can go. So you don't have to like do the full turn. And then there's a seasons, like there's that solstice phase that all players take any of their solstice actions. So it goes around the table, then it hits solstice, then it goes around the table, hits solstice. And during solstice, you'll have some cards in play that give you different things, do different things for you. So everyone does that together. It probably plays in under 2 hours, if maybe an hour if you're familiar with it.
I think if everybody was familiar with it, again, there's a little bit of the asynchronicity that's going to play against you, because each deck you're going to have to kind of get your hand wrapped around it. So I think if you start to learn certain decks, you're probably going to be a little bit faster. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think as we were kind of learning, and like you said, it was kind of tight, and we got towards kind of that whatever the second or third stage where you're kind of like, end game. But I didn't actually know what ended the game, but I knew that we were at this tipping point. Like I think I'm really close. I'm probably ahead, if I could figure out how to end the game now. And what happened is I'm trying to end it, but we went like 2 more turns, and that way, because I knew that by then Ty had his engine kind of running, and that kind of pushed him ahead of me towards the end on some of that. So, but it was good. It was a fun game.
Yeah, I'm really happy I purchased it. It was kind of on a whim. Osprey has done some really great stuff. The first board game I played of theirs was The King is Dead, which I just love. It's such a simple game in that it's just cubes on a map and you're trying to spread influence. Then they did Undaunted, which is cards and a handful of tiles, a great 2-player kind of World War II war game. And then this, and I know they've done a ton of rule sets, obviously, like Frostgrave and can't think of the name of the car one now. Gaslands. Number of games like that. So they just seem to either find designers that are doing really cool, unique things, or have some great in-house. They must just have a really, really creative group of folks developing their IPs, because their games have just been hit after hit after hit. So that was Imperium. I think it's $40 for either of the two, and you get a ton of cards in it. It's a pretty good sized box, and the art is interesting. We didn't really talk about that, but it's not quite comic book style, but it's definitely not like photorealistic art. And it's ancient history, so it's kind of cool to see the various figures and buildings and in that style of like comic book painting, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. That we didn't like touch on it. I think it's good. Like it definitely enhances the game or whatever. But it's not too much over the top. Like you're going, ooh, look at this, whatever. But it definitely doesn't detract at all with the game. And I think the art is really cool enough that it's engaging. And so kind of exactly, they probably spent exactly what they should have on their budget for art, right? In that it enhances the game without being too much. And it isn't detracting at all.
Yeah, it moved like quickly into my top 20 games though, when I think about like the hierarchy of my collection and where it goes. I think it easily moves into the top 20 right off the bat after a single play, because I think there's an incredible amount of replayability. I don't see any game being the same the way that the various civilizations work and how many options you have. So then I think it might have been the following weekend we got together, but Bryce, you came down for a big AOS 2v2 game. I know Dan and Brendan talked about it on their last episode of Cubic Shenanigans, so you can go there to hear the blow by blow kind of breakdown. But ultimately, we should not have taken the first turn, and then we would have probably won. Not true. Probably still would have lost, but we played 1,500 points each player. Ended up being Dan and I, so Nighthaunt and Iron Jaws versus Bryce, and Brendan was Stormcast and Slaanesh. Archaon, but Slaanesh. So
yep,
it's fun to roll dice again. It was the first time I played AOS since October of 2019. It was the first time I'd played, so a good way to see AOS 2.0 out as AOS 3.0 comes, with having not played a game in nearly 2 years. But I don't know anything on that game, Bryce, other than Slaanesh felt really broken in a 3,000 point game because of all the depravity points.
Yeah, 3,000 points. I think that was a lot, but it was just good to get together and play the game with you and Dan and Brendan. And like you said, it's been a long time since we've gotten to do that, so it was nice.
And then that night, we went and grabbed a bite to eat, and then headed over to Troy's and met up with Joshua, Troy, and then the two of us and played some games. I think the first one we broke out was Marvel United, which we may have talked about a little bit last time with how it works, but we did the Asgard expansion and stopped Loki and his manipulative schemes. Bryce, I want to ask you, what were your thoughts about Marvel United, since you were the one that hadn't played it the last time with us?
Yeah, I thought it was really it was fun. It was really simple to pick up and like easy to understand. And like, there's not a lot of setup to it, which I really like. You know, it's one where you can just get it out of the box basically, and it takes 2 minutes and you can play it. I do think it's too easy though, and maybe it's just because you guys are experts or something. But it felt like there was never a doubt that we were going to win the game.
Yeah, I think we've kind of figured it out without the added complexities or the, you know, the ways to make it harder. I think there's an easy solution though for that, and that is to start with only 2 hero actions between the villain and see how that goes, and then the one that's supposed to take you to 2, take it to 1 where you're alternate. That would be an auto
wow.
lose, but I think going to 2 would be one way to solve that. You know, if it proves that the other ways to complicate it or add mission difficulties doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we didn't. I mean, we played right. I think if you read right in the rules, they kind of tell you to take some cards out, like the wilds.
Yep.
That you end up taking out. You know, we haven't played all the. Although we did play Loki, I assume that he's one of the harder villains. Maybe I don't know what. I don't know if how he's forwarded as. But
So we didn't play with the traitor, which I think would also make it harder.
Yep.
So Loki's expansion comes with, you have a random traitor in the 4 heroes who helps to advance Loki's schemes by either playing the wrong cards or, you know, playing cards face down. And it forces each player to play face down. And if you don't, you can basically like lose points or lose actions or something. There's a way to make it harder.
Yeah, and some of the other difficulty schemes or whatever they call them, I'd be interested to see, because I think we only did that once, right? One game. I'd be interested to see what some of the other ones are, to, you know, how they make them harder and that sort of thing. That might tip the scale a little bit more in the AI's favor. So I don't know.
What if we played with 2 villains?
Oh wow,
That'd be real hard.
And then after that, I know it was getting time for Bryce to head out, so we wanted to play something quick. So we played Kingdomino, tile placement, built our own little kingdoms. I think that was the first time, Bryce, you had played Kingdomino as well, right?
Yep. Because I didn't know how to count.
Counting is a difficult skill.
Yeah, I thought it was a 5 from each direction of your centerpiece, and not a 5 by 5 square. So I was gonna make an 11 by 11 square.
That would have been real big.
Yeah. So then Troy told me I was cheating, and yeah.
And then
it wasn't cheating. It was just bringing you back within the rules.
The
lines of the rules. That was.
And then we played My City once Bryce had left, and kept going with our. We added the churches, and that felt that it feels like this game is getting harder and more brain melting every time we open a new envelope. It just makes it more frustrating to try to fit the various buildings onto your little tiny board in the right way. So we'll see what I know. We'll probably play that again tonight and see where we go, but we're only in like the 3rd envelope we've opened out of 8. So I'm really interested to see what you keep adding and how they keep tweaking it, because every change has materially changed how the game is played. Which sometimes legacy style games don't change how the game's played. It just adds in, you know, new bad guys or new variants. But this feels like it is like materially changing the rules, the scoring, and placement, like guidelines every time you advance one of the new episodes.
At the very least, it's adding a wrinkle that changes how you need to place things. Like, you know, maybe some of the rules are all the same, but like adding the churches in, you have to play the church. Okay. You know, like where do I fit this in? You know, there's just so many little, they just ratchet it up a little bit by a little bit. And I love how they're doing that, so that you're learning the game slowly and they just keep ratcheting it up. And so you're building off of what you've already learned previously. And I think that's, I don't know, it's just really smart.
Really
game.
cool. And I love how how they take the initial rules and how now as you go through, you're starting to see how the basic rules get used more. Like I think when we started out, we're like, there's the rule about resigning, right? At any point in the game, the game, you can say, I'm done. I'm not going to place any more tiles for the rest of the game. And that's where my score is where it is. And you're like, well, why would you do that?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know
why. Why would you do? And then as we've gotten through, like, oh, this is like this could be a really critical strategy because if you can't play stuff, you start taking minuses. And so you have to kind of like, at some point, I'm better off just like not scoring anymore because I'm actually may score less if I keep going right on some of that. And what's that balance? So I love how they like the basic rules continue to get more, and they're not getting more complex, but they're more strategic as you get through the more rules.
Yeah, it's
very well done.
It's interesting. Reiner Knizia is, I think he's a genius when it comes down to the design of this game, and just we haven't even seen the next 5, but I think once we get there, the game is going to have so many layers and so many little tweaks and changes that advancing. I think designing a legacy style game that changes the rules as it goes has to be just a very difficult, because you're deconstructing the game. You're playing it at the opening stages with less ingredients, then you're adding more in and more in and more in until you have your end result, your end product. So I wonder if he's done any interviews on the design process or anything, but it'd be fun to find out. Kind of like thinking about how movie directors like Christopher Nolan, with Tenet and stuff, like, do you start at your end idea and then break it down and twist it, or do you kind of just free form as you go, get all these twists and turns? Like, all right, then Troy, I think this next one's yours.
Oh, MonsDRAWsity. So a little bit of call out to our friend Raf Cordero. This is something he had recommended a few, I don't even know, months ago that he played with his kids. And I had it and I grabbed it and I'm like, and finally I talked Sarah into playing it, and she loved it. And really in kind of the non-rule, basically what it is you have cards of different monsters, and they and you have to basically look at them, and then one person describes them. So it'd be like, we were playing, I would look at it, I get like 20 seconds to memorize it, and then for 2 minutes I'm basically describing it to you. You guys are asking questions. How many legs does it have? What kind of eyes? And I'm like, it has a round body and a head, a head that looks like a lizard or something else like that. And you're drawing on kind of the white eraser boards. And then after that, you don't do, I'm trying to think how you do, I can't think of how the scoring works. In the real game, there's some scoring, there's scoring basically around, everybody shows them. And then the person who gave the descriptions, they pick the one that they think is the best. And then secretly, and then they reveal what the card looks like, and everybody shows, and then everybody kind of votes. You can't vote for your own. Everybody votes for which one got the best. And then if somebody says, oh, yours looks the closest, then that person gets a point. And then if the person who described shows what they picked, if that actually matches the one that everybody picked, then there's like a bonus point that gets on. So very light scoring just to kind of make things go. But basically we've done it like Sarah and I, where it's just a double. One person describes, the other person draws, and then at the end you just kind of show and see how weird it is or how wrong you get it or whatever, and go back and forth. And so that's been fun. So I played a little bit of her, and then I took it up north and actually played when we were kind of on vacation with, again, very civilian friendly game for
awesome
for family and everything else like that. So
well, I was also on vacation, and I played on the slip and slide. It was awesome.
It's not a game, Josh.
It's a game. It's a game. We made it a game.
You were allotting points. You were like scoring. There was
the lady like 3 doors down from my dad's house was holding up signs with numbers on them. I got 10s. I'd just like to point that out.
Oh.
was there any spins or rolls in your?
Yeah, I
trip
did like
down?
a corkscrew one time. My dad did like a full flip over, and then he put his hands and legs up. Yeah, it was pretty good. We were awesome.
That's some extreme slip and sliding.
Extreme slip and slide. We busted out the dish soap, so it went extra
boy.
fast.
Oh.
Everybody was all full of soap. It was great.
I hope there was video of you going down the slip and slide.
I don't know if there is,
because I want to see this hit YouTube soon. Like,
we'll check the archives.
all right. How about some hobby other than making
hopefully
DIY slip and
Bryce
slides?
can drag us through this, because I don't know. I'm looking at our notes, and I think Ty, you did all right. I didn't do. I'll just go because I didn't do much. I think last time I didn't even listen. Last time I was trying to remember. I think I didn't even commit, and I still couldn't.
You picked 5 things.
I picked 5 things, and I didn't. I'm looking. Oh wow! I looked around to try and like salvage something, and I'm like, man, I did not even. I did acquire some Gaunt's Ghosts, and I think an AOS book, which was
Craig knows,
just random.
right?
Yeah. Probably because it has enough rules in it, but
I also failed. I was supposed to just use my airbrush. That was it. Like just something. No, I failed.
So do you guys have a new charity picked out for the $10 assessment that you're facing?
TBD. I'm not sure.
yeah, I had an idea, and I have to go look for it. I should have picked one out. I have one that I've been thinking about. I didn't write it down, so yeah, we will follow up with that.
I think what you guys should consider is Meth's rantathon for mental health is coming up.
There we go. I will do
end
that.
of July, so we could do our June and July totals towards whatever else we're going to do for that.
Perfect.
Well, my goal was to paint 20 zombies from 2nd edition and Zombicide. So I've picked up 3 different sets of the instant colors from Scale 75. And I have a hodgepodge of various contrast paints from GW. So I primed them with the Wraithbone, which is that it's that warmer white. You know, it has a little bit of probably, I think, yellow in it from GW. And then just started using the various contrast and instant colors from Scale to paint up the zombies. And there was a cool like dead skin, and then I added, a warmer like flesh over it. Did the various cloth, leather, backpacks, whatever else, and then used my Vallejo metals to do like, one is a welder, so he's got like the welder mask. So I did like aromatic blue on the visor part, and then the metal for the mask and the tank. The only thing I haven't done on the 20 zombies is blood effects, but I want to get all of them done from the set, and then just sit there and flick, splatter like blood on the zombies and hit a few spots with the brush, but just do it all in once with a big thing of newspaper, and just from the top kind of spray maybe a spray bottle of blood paint
from the top. From the top, make it drop.
Yeah, right.
That's some blood splatter.
Gosh.
So I hit my goal, and I also then spent a couple hours with the same paints. I'm having a lot of fun using instant colors from Scale 75. They're a little bit thinner than the GW contrast paint. So sometimes I'm working with layering different ones, getting using a lighter one and then a dark one in the recesses, and just kind of playing with that, and then hitting some of the fabric and other stuff with a dry brush of regular paints after it to get a little bit more of the texture and the look of cloth. But I did it's a Zombicide Black Plague miniature. He's holding like a staff with a jawbone attached to it. I think he's one of the necromancers. Or one of those characters. But since we're going to be doing a little bit of Frostgrave here in the coming months, I figured he would make a cool wizard. So paint him up, put a little like blue face paint on, because I want to do kind of a barbarian necromancer feel. So I'll have some barbarians and then a couple of skeletons that are some of my soldiers. So my hobby goal for next time, by the time we record next month, is to finish the warband. So 9 more models. So 8 of the soldiers and specialists, and then 1 apprentice. So I'll have those 9 done. for Frostgrave, which I think we're gonna look to play in August. When maybe we'll talk about what we're doing in August here before the end of the show as well, because that'll be here before next time. So, Bryce, how about you?
Yeah, I think my goal was to paint my test models and then either build a unit or paint a unit. And I finished painting one test model, and I liked it so much that I decided that I didn't need to paint anymore. And it was a Warlock Bombardier, the Skaven guy with the rocket launcher in his hands. And I had a lot of fun painting that bright yellow with some like checkered green and purple on it. So I just jumped right into a unit of clan rats and got those. I can't say done because I am using some bases from Eldrick Hobbies. He does resin sculpted bases, and there's these cogs and gears and screws and all kinds of stuff like that on them. So I want to do like a little bit of a steampunk feel because I'm going to do some conversions based around the Scryer clan. So I didn't get them based. So I'll let you guys decide if that counts or not for me achieving my goal.
I think it counts. I didn't base my zombies either because I'm waiting on that, but I got the models done. So
I also didn't base my non-airbrush model. So we'll count it.
Okay. And then I got this crazy idea to try to speed paint some Stormcast, and I think it's 23 models out and got them base coated, and then I stopped painting them. But I have an excuse because Ty posted his Frostgrave wizard that he just talked about, and then back when Shutdown all happened, I was going to be playing Frostgrave, and I think that game's called Warden. It's from Osprey, the same writer as Frostgrave, but it's like a solo campaign, and you're a ranger. And it's the same concept. You have a warband, you have a ranger and his apprentice. But I was going to play a bunch of that, and I bought a bunch of 3D printed models. And a lot of the 3D printed models I got look really good, but they're not super detailed. You can't get a great effect when you just wash and dry brush them. But I bought these 3 dwarfs and from some guy on Etsy, and they're heroic scale, but they're like the size. They're a little bit smaller than like a Fire Slayer, so they're pretty small. But the detail on them is absolutely incredible, and there's no lines, there's no little flaky things that sometimes are on them. It's absolutely remarkable how high quality these models are, and I just started painting them yesterday, and hopefully here tomorrow I'll be able to share them because they'll be done. But just unbelievable. Honestly, I wish I knew who it was because I bought him a year ago, but the guy deserves some major credit for how tuned in he has his printer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, resin printers are pretty crazy, and they're just getting better. Like that was a year ago. I think they're just getting in the price that really good ones like that. The price is just coming down, and I don't know. I'm not diving in there yet, but
yeah, I'm right there. Ugh.
If it didn't have to do all the sorry for the 3D printing stuff, but it's actually not the printing, it's the curing and the cleaning and the right. It's a little bit more. Yeah, you have to have a kind of a much more dedicated space, and a little bit you want to have fresh air and things like that to do it right. And that's really what's holding me back. If I had a
Dr. Gabe says you don't need fresh air when you're working on resin. Doctor recommended. Mm-hmm. I don't know. He probably didn't say that, but when you're filing resin, he'd back whatever I say. He's my medical advisor, so he'd be like, yeah, that's right. That's all I had to interject about 3D printing was a joke about medical doctors. How about goals for next time?
I put Frostgrave. I think that was a good because what's good and my motivator is always events, and so I think the fact that we probably almost for sure are going to be trying to play some Frostgrave that'll motivate me, and it'll actually give me, if I have deadlines, I'm much better.
So Troy is going to do a Frostgrave Wizard and Warband.
Yep,
the 10 models.
Yeah, I won't commit to how far I get by next time, but I want to have a good chunk of yeah, at least well on the path. If I'm not well on the path, then I'll really be in trouble. But
All right. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, I will do the same, Wizard and Warband, and I will also bust out the airbrush. I'll carry
wow.
I'll carry that
Oh.
over.
Wow.
Because I feel like I failed.
Doubling down. All right.
Mhm.
And Bryce, is it going to be the Warband wrapping that up?
Can I make mine turn on my airbrush?
No, I won't allow you to
No? Okay.
just turn on your airbrush.
So I will finish the Warband, but that's not fair because it'll be done probably tomorrow. So I'll finish the Warband. I will paint a set of terrain for Frostgrave and a set of terrain for Marvel Crisis Protocol, as well as 3 heroes for Crisis Protocol.
Wow. That's lofty goals. I love it.
That's a guarantee.
Guarantee. Yeah, and I'm gonna do my Frostgrave Warband, but Bryce is making me feel like I should add to it. So maybe I'll finish up some extra terrain. I have some of the walkways from Warcry sitting around so that we can have, people fall off height, because that'll be more fun in Frostgrave. And yeah, hobby goals for our accountability challenge. Any I see a blank space under crowdfunding. Any Kickstarter backing, or people getting stuff from Kickstarter, or finding out that Aetherfields is delayed another 6 months? Or
How did you see that?
oh, I'm making that up.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming.
It is. Legitimately, I got an email last week. It is to 2023 now.
2023.
Yeah.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, man.
So I backed Frosthaven, so the Gloomhaven expansion.
Okay,
and as those updates come, he rewrote some things, and he just mentioned, he's like, as the global shipping crisis gets worse, he's like, I know it's going to be chaos. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but we'll keep you updated and hang in there. It's like all these folks are just planning that anything they're going to try to ship in the next year is going to be 2 years. It feels like there's this just huge, incredible backlog. I picture all these boats, like the cab stand outside a busy hotel in like Chicago. It used to be, Uber's kind of changed that a little bit, but like where you'd have just around the block line of cabs. That's like the boats at these shipping docks. Like, just
should we buy a BOD barge and like start shipping stuff?
Oh, there we go.
Maybe.
you got a few $100 million for one of those container ships.
Yeah.
I mean, we could put it on the BOD card.
Cool. Yeah. The only thing, as I'm looking at it, the camera can't see it, but Kemet Blood and Sand I received, and maybe that was my hobby, was to unbox that and rebox it and punch it out and sleeve it and everything to get it ready, hopefully to play. But super excited. They did a nice job on taking Kemet to the super level. Everything's new figures, more figures, cool cards, new art, all that stuff. Really cool.
All right, let's move into the other fun, just random items of geekery. I'm gonna go first here, because one I'm very disappointed in, and one I'm very excited about. So I'll start with the bad news first, and that's I'm not gonna go into it because it's all over social media, but TSR. So originally the company that created D&D, Gygax's thing in Lake Geneva, had kind of, when they got bought out, purchased in the, I think, mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 95 by Wizards of the Coast? Kind of disappeared a few years ago. The TSR brand, maybe it was 10 years ago, the TSR brand got purchased by a group that did some kind of spy game, and used the TSR like logo. Well, that they didn't file their paperwork for the licensee stuff for last year, and instantly it got picked up by a number of folks, one of which was Ernie Gygax, and now they're TSR, and they're talking about like doing old school projects, and there's been some very gatekeepery, I guess, if I'm making up a word,
That works.
stances, talking about how gaming is, isn't forever. basically being a heavy-handed like slam to all of the work that people are doing around diversity and inclusion and gender and just all of this work that's been happening in the space, kind of crapping all over that. And he did a podcast interview. It was really disappointing. And I think that, I don't want to belabor a point, but it's worth educating yourself, seeing what someone says and looking beyond, there's that, oh yeah, TSR, like childhood, whatever it was. Like, don't give them any time because of the nostalgia factor. Look at what they're saying, look at what they're doing, and use your own ability to discern, what are bad actors in the gaming space and what is gatekeeping and how it is a huge negative impact on a lot of the work that some people are doing. So just, take a look, educate yourself, and then, form your own opinions. But I was disappointed to see that kind of flare up recently. But then on the flip side, I'm very excited in the coming weeks. So there's a big crossover between Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering coming as the Forgotten Realms set releases, and it will be a standard, so it's not going to be part of their new Worlds Beyond or Universes Beyond like the 40K one, which I'm also excited for, but it's going to introduce like a dungeon delve rule where you'll have a dungeon card and then you can advance into the dungeon through actions on cards. I've seen some of the like the new rules, some of the legends that we know and love from the Forgotten Realms. So that's a set I might go and just like pre-order two boxes and actually think about like drafting real live Magic again. Because if there's a set that I want to play, it's the Forgotten Realms set for Magic. So I'm really excited to see that coming here in the coming weeks.
You had me at Magic.
Yeah. Had me at Forgotten Realms. That's what's got me super excited around that.
So Troy, how about you? A new place you discovered?
Yeah. So I'm, again, sorry for the local call out, but I was, my parents are up in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. If anybody knows where that is, the thumb of Wisconsin, if you know how your geography at all. There we go. Closer to Bryce than we are right now. So I'm glad. I'm gonna have to find this. I'm gonna release the video for this. This will be great. And my sister had scouted this out a month or two ago. I think they opened up in May. But the Nashville, which is a game store, I think owned by Gnome Games. I think they're out of Madison. So I think that's actually where they're kind of a satellite for that. But right downtown, Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin has a game store, full blown. We went in there, whatever it was, last Sunday when I was up there, and they have a little cafe, so coffee and just some food, and then some tables, and then a nice inventory of games in the back. Anything from 40K stuff to Cards Against Humanity, kind of the full range of, you get some normal kind of game stuff all the way back to some very hardcore, miniature kind of gaming stuff. But most of it was kind of in that middle board game, My City, a lot of the stuff that's back here, right? Very much in that, and some decent table space and they're just kind of getting back into having events in the store and something like that. But they had, on their sign, they had, whatever it was, open Warhammer on one night or something else like that. So super exciting. Yeah. Even more reason to visit my parents now, I guess. And then we
especially on that night.
And and like, oh, I'll be up but I'm not I'll be gone, and then I'll come back later. But it's just, again, maybe it's just a little bit of the how gaming has really grown, that we're even in whatever. I think it I always call out to I think it's Labyrinth Games in Baraboo, which is by the Dells. So I think there's something too around tourist thing. Like, you get a lot of people there, and maybe there is a little bit of people looking for something to do when they're at their cabin or something else like that. And that game stores could find some people that'll want to buy stuff there. And because it'd be interesting to see how they do, right? How they do is that. But my guess is that Gnome Games kind of knows what they're doing, right? If they run a couple other stores, and so they must have seen something there that makes sense for them. So I bought something just to make sure that I can help support them. So
well, I think you put up a picture of their rules too, and maybe we can link to that when we put up show notes or something, or in the blog post. But I think, I don't remember them word for word, but it was a very well thought out way to kind of publicly say what they're about and what they encourage for play, and being a friendly, kind of open, inclusive space, versus sometimes game stores have a little bit of that beardy gatekeeping,
yeah. And I won't read the whole thing. I will put it up there, but I mean, they kind of, the big points were fairness, honesty, respect, sportsmanship, learning, and teaching. Play safe, right? Is kind of there. And then they have a little bit more text around each one of those things, but the Gnomish code, as they called it. So, yeah, really cool.
Yeah, so always cool to see a business kind of put their stamp on what they stand for and what they believe in. So, all right, how about some library segment? Should be pretty quick. I know summer's here, so time spent in a chair with a book or listening to audiobooks might be down if you're doing projects in your yard or doing a DIY slip and slide. But I am almost done. I'm 780 pages into the book 2 of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, the Deadhouse Gates, or the Deadhouse Gate, the second book in that series. So almost done with that. And then I've got Memories of Ice, the third one, ready to go. They're getting longer though. This book's like 831 pages in the old paperback. So it's that thick. You gotta like hold it open and like crease the seam of the paperback to keep it from closing on itself. But really liking that and enjoying that series. So I'll probably keep going and see maybe I can get through a few more of them this year, because they're lengthy reads. And then I'm listening to The Poppy War. I've got about 5 hours left. And that's Rebecca Kuang. That was, speaking of Raph earlier, that was a recommendation. I think when we talked to him almost a year ago, he was reading that or finishing that. Really liking it. It's a good one on Audible. And I'll probably finish that trilogy out too in short order. So that's what I've been reading. I think we may have mentioned Project Hail Mary last time, as that was our book, but that had been a recent finish. And then I watch, so it's like a zombie show on Netflix called Black Summer. The first season came out in 2019. And then they just released season 2. So obviously the pandemic delayed kind of filming and everything. It's definitely more of a action, less dramatization, like The Walking Dead, has all the character stories and everything. Whereas Black Summer is a very like, handheld camera, a lot of like frantic running and survival, and people don't last long. It's not like you follow a group of 12 characters over 10 years. It's like you're lucky if they make it through an episode, and then it shifts the vantage point and the angle to somebody else. So I watched that. I kind of binged it over the last week or so, but really like that one. If you're into zombie shows, I think Black Summer is a good departure from the kind of the in-depth storytelling that Walking Dead does, and it focuses more on just like intense trying to survive moments. And not everyone is a expert level ninja with a katana or a crack shot with their pistol. So it's much more try to get away. And the times you do see someone try to fight a zombie, it's much more frantic. It's a lot of gunshots, not getting that headshot. It's, it's very closer to what I imagine like real life zombie apocalypse would be like, where it's just a lot of people dying. It's not like these action heroes. So
it's more like Outbreak Undead than Zombicide.
Yeah, it's more Outbreak Undead. I describe it as more 28 Days Later, too, like that Danny Boyle style. The zombies run fast, and so it's the scary kind of zombie. It's not the slow one where they're walking and you've got to twist your ankle to get caught by one of them. Anything else out there? Reading?
I just wanted, I think I've been hanging on Mortis, which is book 5 of the Siege of Terra for a while. I am now to the audiobook. So the audiobook was delayed. And so I'd been reading the started the collector's version, and then the ebook came out and I went to that. And then finally I noticed, the audiobook is finally out. I don't know what, again, who knows, maybe Jonathan Keeble had a sore throat or something, or he was doing so. But they didn't, usually they kind of release them at the same time as the ebook. And in this case, it was a few weeks afterward before they got the But there's nothing like having Jonathan Keeble read the thing. So I and it's funny, like I almost always start over. Like I'll be reading it and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back and read into that. So really enjoying that. I'm about almost more than halfway through on Mortis. And so Horus closes in closer and closer to getting the Emperor, if you don't know how it ends. So
Roy.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I was just about to start.
They are awesome, even though everyone knows how it ends. That's the cool thing of this tragedy.
So what actually happens, Bryce, is Horus, right? He's been painted as this bad guy, this head of chaos, but he actually has a change of heart. And he sits down with his dad and they have a nice cup of coffee and they talk about their differences. And everything's going well and good, and they're on a path to recovery, right? It's this huge, massive rift in mankind is gonna be fixed. And then Rabute comes in and he's like, oh, Horus, you're such a dick. And then Horus gets mad at Gilliam, and there's this huge cataclysm and fallout from the two brothers that can't get along. And then everything goes to hell, and that's where we are now with Chaos for Space Marines, and it's all Gilliam's fault.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Probably. It's probably true.
That happens in Mortis.
Yeah. And it's John French. I really like John French. He's I don't know, he's in my top 3 or so, probably 3 or 4 of Black Library authors. So really good stuff. And then I was gonna get, I think Ty had mentioned The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue a few episodes ago. And I needed just a little bit of a palate cleanser. And so I dove in on that one. And then I've been joking that Ty made me read a romance novel for the last, kind of the paranormal, supernatural romance novels. So that one, I made it through and it was enjoyable. I always talk about like if a book isn't what you think it is, like that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, right? That it's bad. Like, I think there's something where you project like, I would have done it this way, or I would have done it that way. And I always kind of think like, well, that's you, right? You have to say that's you. That's not anything really against the book, right? Now it's maybe it shows how it maybe doesn't align with your expectations on some of that stuff. So again, I think there's a really cool story there. And that's what grabbed you, Ty, on it.
Yeah.
I just thought that I think it was more of like, I felt like she could have went so many, like just a little bit different ways, or kind of took some more, made it a little more, I don't know, maybe it was grittier or just more emotional. I thought there were some things that she really could have, because the premise of having kind of this immortal person and the curse and then having kind of this devil as kind of the adversary, but not an adversary in some respects. There's a lot that again, so it's kind of more of like, I felt like there was, I had this expectation of a little bit more that really just didn't play out. It just kind of played it straight, as in my mind, like she kind of stayed safe, kind of like, went down the road in that. So I did go through that. It was a nice little palate cleanser. And an interesting, again, I think there's some interesting plot things there that you could take away from it and like, oh, this is interesting ideas for whether that seeds other stories or RPGs or other stuff like that. So
yeah, it was a book that I think was so far from what I had been reading that at the time where I was reading it, I really enjoyed that story. And I know it was fun kind of seeing your commentary on it and reading through it and in hindsight, I think as I was listening and taking it in, I enjoyed it more than when I'm going back and thinking about it. But I also think I'm always, so I studied film and I really love the idea of adaptation and like screenplays. And I think this book would make just a really great movie. And I think that's part of how I listen to it as well, is like, I tend to be very visual when I listen to an audiobook, like picturing what's happening. And I was thinking about, how I would shoot that, or how I would, how the scene is described, and seeing it through a camera versus like words on page for me is kind of how I approach it. And I think visually, Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab, did a very good job of describing things from that, like the artist's eye, the cinematographer's lens, like seeing Addie in the room and then talking about how doors and losing line of sight for her curse, or sorry to break any spoiler-ish type stuff here, but like how important angles and seeing someone is to what affects her and her curse. I had a very like visual response to the book, and I think that was a big part of it for me. How about Bryce? Any more Sandman Slim? Any?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Does it matter that Craig is gone?
We don't talk about Craig.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Troy can cut that out, but he hung up on us.
Yeah, Craig.
He's all right.
Craig had to go.
But he
had a family emergency.
I have other.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read Sandman. Actually, 2 Sandman Slim books since we last recorded, 5 and 6. So I'm on 7.
Oh, you're
currently.
Ahead of me now. You passed me.
I loved 5. 5 is probably my favorite so far. It takes place in an old abandoned super mall. Did you read that one, Ty?
The last one I read was The Hell.
Oh, okay. So you haven't read that one
with
yet.
With the
then.
generals, and he is Lucifer. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, so you're quite a ways behind me now. But anyway, it's just super cool. And in the Friday night game that we play with Paul, we've been talking about like abandoned stuff and how cool of a story it makes. And the whole thing is about people who have moved into or taken residence in this abandoned mall, and they're, demons and entities that aren't meant for the world. And there's just communities within this abandoned mall, and they're trying to get to the basement of the mall to get something from it. And I had so much fun. There's so many callbacks to like, the super malls of the 90s and early 2000s where they were just over the top. And, there's still this center of the mall where Christmas decorations are out and just over the top. And it was really enjoyable. And then I read the one after that, which was also really enjoyable. And that series just really, really does it for me. So that's, I haven't decided if I'm starting 7 or if I'm going to slide something in between and then come back to it, because pretty soon I'm going to be caught up, and then I'm going to be in that awkward position like I got to with the book that's slipping my mind that Troy wants us to deep dive into.
The night, King's Dark Tidings?
Yes.
Bryce, I think there's 10 books in the Sandman Slim collection, and I don't know that Richard Kadri, the author, has any plans to return to it. I feel like it might be the 10 book series. I think, or if he does, it's been a while, because he's written like 2 or 3 other books since returning to Sandman Slim, and I don't know that he has plans to. And I look at like what press there is about his release schedule, but that'll be something I'll be interested to see. But I feel like he kind of tried to wrap it up in the 10 books, but I don't know, because I haven't read the back half of the series.
I'm excited to come back to that series. I'm kind of still catching up on Dresden. And I don't even know if I talked about I squeezed in a Dresden book here somewhere along the line too. But that's my series to make it through, and it kind of fills my urban fantasy slot in my books. And so when I get through that, then I'll probably come back to Sandman Slim, because I read the first one and I really enjoyed it. Like it just like the humor and the characters, it's really good.
Man, I think I'm gonna have to start this.
It's
you would like it a lot, Josh.
They're so fun to listen to, and the character Sandman Slim he's just you feel like not a connection, but like he just gets crapped on so hard by life and like other stuff, and he doesn't do anything to really help himself. He's just kind of jaded, and like what he says to people is just hilarious at times.
Right. I think his dialogue is just like you have the laugh out loud, where especially like if you're listening and you're around, you just laugh out loud. And people
I look like a fool walking.
Right.
I'm sure, because I'm just laughing.
So it's
like pretty loud.
Really good.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
It's
they're shorter listens too. They're like, some of them are only 8 hours, some are 12 hours, but they're not long. So it's pretty easy that's at 1.25 or whatever. But It's
so normal
quick.
normal mode.
That's the secret audible speed.
Yeah.
You up it to 1.2 or 1.3 to shorten up the lengthy books.
Well, I haven't done any reading recently, and so that's a perfect thing to grab here. But I, for whatever reason, I've gotten into the Alone series.
Oh yeah.
They drop people in remote
the
Alaska.
Arctic usually, yeah. Season 7 was a banger.
Yeah, I just finished that up, so that was what I've been watching.
Roland was pretty awesome.
He's the man. He was pretty good.
Rock House,
man. It's worth a watch if you guys are into like any kind of outdoorsy, survival-y type stuff. It's pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, I've heard that recommendation from a couple other people too. Even one of my neighbors randomly for some reason. So yeah,
there's a couple seasons on Netflix. So yeah, it's worth checking out at least an episode or two to see if you'd be into it. So
all right, so that's the library. I think we're going to take a brief break. I'm going to get a coconut porter, and then we'll be back for our kind of around the horn host Q&A interview extravaganza. So we will be right back. And we are back here in studio, and Bryce in the comfort of his own home because it's a long ways away. We need him to become independently wealthy and move back to the Milwaukee area, so then we can start doing in-person D&D and in-person podcasting and in-person everything.
I thought you guys just all wanted a couch now, though. Like Bryce is
It
really
is
comfortable, and he's
His-
and we've got
His couch is very comfortable.
and I've got the good chair, and you guys have got the.
I've sat on that couch before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've looked at that couch before.
I think you ate on this couch.
I did eat. We ordered Mexican food, I think,
Yeah.
on one of our hobby
Frontier,
marathons.
Troy, I've never been invited to Bryce's house. How about you?
Yes, I have. Sorry.
First time in my house.
Well, now I'm really offended.
I feel like you've probably been invited and you've just
Yeah.
ignored my invitations.
That's probably accurate.
Well, we'll have a chance, I'm sure, for some get-togethers here in the coming months where we can all sample the couch.
That is the key.
Yeah,
It's the dogs and the couch.
it's like couch shopping. It's something that has to happen every so often. Sampling of said couches. So without more randomness and discussion about why Josh was never invited to Bryce's house because he's the least favorite host of Playin and Slayin, let's get into the questions. I'm going to moderate this, and I'll probably participate as well because I never can be quiet for more than a minute or two. But we've got a couple of questions about various topics, and we'll kind of all weigh in, and then Max Kellerman will assign random points and mute people when they're out of time.
Whoa.
Yeah, Max Kellerman series. He's off in the other room upstairs with his air horn. So I think we've mentioned RAF a few times, but where I think it would be kind of cool to start off is kind of a year later, a retrospective on diversity in gaming. So we spent a lot of time talking to RAF when we had him on about inclusion and what you can do to diversify your space and gaming in general. And now that we're looking about a year back, how are we doing? And that can be us personally as a group or individuals with, what we consume, what we produce, who we play with, where we play, whatever it might be. Or, just in general, what you've seen in gaming and stores as they reopen. And, I think there's a lot of toxicity in social media in general. So that's not a good barometer. But, if you've seen anything of note. So, I don't want to call on you guys, but Troy, I'll start with you for any kind of thoughts around this topic and revisiting our discussion with Raf.
Sure. And yeah, this is one that just kind of hit me because one of them was, because I think it was about a year ago. I think it was June or July last year that we had him on, if I'm correct there. I may be completely off, but I think that's about right. And so I've been, thinking about, again, what have I done? More, it's just like, what have I done? What have I seen changes and things like that? I think the big one that came, and it was a little bit of a call to action that Raf had, was like, hey, diversify who's in your inputs, right? Who's in your stream? Who are you following? Find some people who are kind of out of your norm and add them to your, for me, I kind of have slid away from Twitter, and the Instagram has been the thing that I actually use now. And so I've tried to add some more female voices in there and in some of that space. Things on YouTube, following some different channels of different, whether it's female gaming or other diverse voices in there. So I've tried to do that. And I think that's actually, I've noticed that it's opened me up to seeing new things I hadn't seen before. And some of those people also have shared some of their challenges in some of the group and how things are either better or just some of the challenges they've had in that. So I think that's one area that I took from that when we talked about a year ago, and it's helped. I think it feels like we're starting to see, especially in RPGs, and maybe again you open your eyes a little bit, and when you're looking for it, you see it, right? But it seems like you're seeing a lot, especially streaming groups and things like that, who are very, very diverse groups. And a lot more female voices in there, a lot of people of color that you're starting to see. So I think it's not just us, right? I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out, okay, how do we kind of reach out to more people and include them, be more inclusive in all kinds of things, right? Through that. So I think that, I'm trying to look at the positive in that. I think that you can always see cases of things that are not going that, and there's some I think there was some blowback to, like any things, right? There are people who are stuck into their old ways, and when things start to change, they kind of dig in and they try and be boisterous and loud to try and keep people from enacting change. But things there, I think, going pretty good. One thing I look for us, there was like, again, we tend to be very, very bunch of white guys in our gaming group. I don't know that we have who we'd have to, like, some female that would join us or anybody else like that. But I think that's something we'd always look for, right? Like, is there somebody that's around that could game with us in some aspects in that respect? So I think that's something we can continue to look for, right? Make sure, how do we continue to be diverse in just the people we game with. But
yeah, I think with kind of everything going on, right, and things maybe starting to open up, around our communities. I'll echo what you said. Adding people in social media or just random other inputs, right, that actively looking for more diverse voices and stuff. And actually, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Eric Lang recently kind of did a call to, I think, people of color or something. I forget exactly what his message was, but basically saying, hey, I want to lift up your voices. Let me know if you're in the gaming industry and you're producing something, or a content creator, or you're developing a game or whatever, right? I want to lift up your voices. And that kind of resonated with me. It was very recent, like in the last couple of days. And so that kind of resonated with Raf's message to us, right? Like to kind of look for that kind of stuff. And I thought that was kind of neat. So I think it was Eric Lang. I could be wrong, but yeah, anyway, it's something he would do, right?
Yeah. Another really cool thing that happened, I think, is the Warhammer community team hired a female paint
presenter
teacher in Louise, and she's just an incredible painter. So definitely well deserved, but I think it's super awesome that they did that to diversify, the biggest brand in miniatures, and the content they put out. To see her there is awesome.
Well, I think it's always with Games Workshop. Sometimes it's too little and too late. They've have a long history, but they're starting to do these things, and I think seeing that is big. And the other one, which is relatively big, you know, there's always been like Sisters of Battle, but they were isolated. There's the new Imperial Guard has, you know, female guards, like guardswomen. Like there's representation in a model line that historically has had zero representation. And you see, you know, some of the painting of the box art, you're starting to see, you know, representation of non-white, you know, skin tones, and like it's little, but it's a step, and that I think is important. And then the other one from a relatively what had been pretty white, although male and female representation was there. Critical Role did a new limited campaign called Exandria Unlimited, and Matt Mercer handed off the reins to Abria Iyengar, and I'm probably slaughtering the pronunciation.
You did better than I would have. So that's good.
But a black female GM. There are, I think, one Latina, and then, you know, a couple females, and then Matt Mercer playing. And I think Critical Role has always tried to be inclusive in the charity work they do, and but this is a huge step in the right direction, just to get a different voice, you know, from a representation standpoint in the GM chair for the campaign. I haven't watched, but I know they just had their first episode, I think Thursday last week. And they're going to do 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think it's an 8. It's like an 8 episode short run. I tuned in just for whatever, a half hour or so when I was doing stuff on Thursday, because I had saw the trailers and everything were so exciting, and then how they introduced the characters. I was super excited, again, just in the Critical Role space, but also seeing how they've diversified it, and just seeing Matt hand off the reins to, you know, his baby. It was interesting too.
So I mean, those are bigger. I mean, and personally, I think I've tried to educate myself a lot more, and just kind of that. I don't want to repeat the mantra of everyone is listen, you know, and learn, but following different people on Twitter. I can't think of her last name, but Suzanne. It's like the gaming.
425
Suzanne.
Yeah.
Looking at her follows, finding some others, and just trying to add. So what I'm getting on Twitter isn't all the same that it had been over the last year. And then it's also helping me block and mute a number of relatively toxic voices. You know, when the mansplainers hop into a thread and start, you know, saying, well, actually, like, block and mute. Like, I've just had a healthier experience from reducing kind of the clutter of social media. And then reading, you know, I mentioned Victoria Schwab, Rebecca Kuang, you know, trying to add just some different voices from the white male authors that I had read for years, you know, and intersperse, because you truly get a different experience from your reading when the voice is different. Even if the world is different or the story is different, you get a different view, I think, from a different voice in literature. And that's been really important for me too. And now I'm consciously making those choices when I look at fiction and upcoming books to select and read. So, it's hard, you know, it's not easy to change kind of the habits you fall into. But you know, it's important. And I think that's been my experience for the last year, is just putting some effort into, taking in different content.
Yeah. I like how you said it, Ty. Like, you have that. I think that's the trick, is you just have to exert energy in that direction, because everything, it's changing a little bit, but if you swing into the default, it's going to swing you into the made, you know, you're not going to get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have to have that little bit of that conscious energy to, like, hey, I'm going to consciously make sure I'm being more inclusive. I'm looking for things like that. But it's not a lot. It's just like having that awareness and then putting a little bit of energy in it to kind of open your blinders a little bit, and just realize when you are kind of, I'm kind of in the default stream, and that means I'm just getting kind of the the generic thing, and that is not very diverse.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to be very clear that it's not like hard work. I mean, there's a significant struggle and adversity that is faced by people that are, of color, female. Like this, I say it's hard, but it's not. It's just, it's a conscious effort. It's taking that step. It's not like I'm facing challenges and adversity by doing so. It's just that, I got to check myself, and it's important to do that checking of oneself. And I think the world of gaming could benefit from everybody kind of just taking that step back and saying, I need to listen to more people. I need to open up kind of my own horizons and see and hear. It feels good. We should get Raph back and let him weigh in too. We'll have to get some commentary from him. I'm gonna change the tune a little. I know that was relatively serious, but I'm gonna go to a bit of a would you rather, and it's a question I've been thinking about a lot as I'm GMing a couple of different games right now, and that's player agency. It's letting the players kind of drive the story and throwing events based on their actions. So it's kind of a would you rather of playing, RPGs. And that is, would you rather just be told no, given like a no, that's not happening, or hear the GM kind of chuckle and then say, well, he can try anything once. And to have that agency, and it can be a direct action. It could be, going and exploring a place that the GM may not have prepared or thought out, but like, I guess how much choice is too much versus, just being told, no, you can't go there. You can't do that.
I think as long as it's clear what the player's expectations and the DM's expectations of what the player wants to do, and I think as long as that social contract is there, yeah, I mean, if the player's like, can I push this button that says danger? And you're like, I mean, it says danger as long as you realize it says danger. And they push the button, I think as long as, that is in play, then yeah, I mean, you can try anything once, I would say. But I get where the DM will sometimes pump the brakes and be like, maybe you want to rethink that. You don't want to have that feel bad experience, right? So as a DM, I think that's kind of there's that line, right? Of where.
Yeah, I mean, it's letting the halfling try to cut off a frost giant's ear.
right.
And only killing one party member, not the whole party.
I mean, he knew what he was doing, and he knew how dangerous it was, and you were like, yes, let's do this. All right, roll for it.
There's always a chance.
Yeah, he wanted to push the danger button. That was cool.
Yep. He broke the glass to hit the danger button. Bryce, what are your thoughts on player agency, and when is it too much choice or freedom versus what's the right balance?
I love letting the players do the crazy stuff and seeing what comes from it. I think in D&D it sometimes is maybe a little harder to allow for the craziest of crazy ideas to execute, but I think in Storyteller, for example, some of the crazy ideas that you would come up with Blair would create storylines that I don't think any of us, Paul included, would ever even think of, and the player making this crazy act or trying to do this crazy thing, or just walking down the street you didn't think they'd walk down. I think that leads to some of the coolest moments. And it also, I think, opens up your creativity too. 'Cause sometimes, in the modules that there are, it's very much, here's the path we're going down. But if we go somewhere that's not in the book, I know it creates work for you, but it's fun to see you kind of have to improvise and make up a story to go with what we choose to do. So I think it just leads to more creativity and more fun for everyone when players just do what they want to do.
Players gonna play.
Yeah. As someone who does a lot of stupid stuff in the game.
How about you, Troy?
I don't know. I guess I'll be a little contrary. Again, I think there's definitely player agency, definitely in the things we're talking about around player actions and things like that. I think it's a little bit like you were saying, Josh, around what is that social contract with not just the player, but with the group, right? Because I think you can get a little bit where maybe one person really is taking a little bit of spotlight or really trying to drive something over there, and the other people just like, no, can't we just go to the top, but I think sometimes that works itself out within the group. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where, again, a GM maybe has to kind of, if he's seeing that he doesn't have a balance within the group, right, that's where
play referee a little bit,
right. Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe we're not going to go down like, because it feels like you're so I think it's a tough line, right? You're trying to balance that, and again, even in like, again, the module kind of stuff, like where's the line between how often do you do the side kind of things versus kind of where do we kind of keep moving the story or figure out what the mystery is and some of that, and where are all the players' heads at in some of that space. So I don't think you ever want to hear no, right? It's like there's a box, and I think even there probably should be some, right? There is a box that you're working within, and it's just like, how big is that box? And I think sometimes it depends on what did people talk about. Like, hey, this is going to be very much free form, sandbox kind of stuff. Or, hey, we're kind of in a module, but we're going to loosen the edges of that module in the story, because depending on what the group wants to do. Or it could be like, hey, we just want to go through the module and see what the story is, right? Through some of those. So, that's, I think, what makes each one of the role-playing experiences fun. So that's kind of where my head's at.
I asked the question because I've been thinking a lot about, so there's a style of campaign called the West Marches campaign. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but the concept is usually it's a larger group of players, can be a dozen, can be 18, and it's whoever's available on a week, and the players kind of set the agenda, and sometimes there's multiple GMs too, but it often is in a border kingdom that's unexplored. You come to the central town, and then it's like a player says, well, there's this group of ogres that are waylaying people on the North Road or whatever. We want to go take care of that. And it's this kind of player GM collaboration to build the campaign, but it's more episodic in nature, so that like if 6 people are there that week, they can play and do the session. The GM puts it together, and they go. But it's that idea of this kind of living, breathing, border kingdom style play where it's not explored. You don't know what is 10 miles north. You don't know what's 10 miles west, east, whatever. Like, so that you can kind of create it as you go. So it's less arcing narrative, more, think like spokes going out from a wheel of the town and finding places. So it's been a thought experiment. I don't know that I've got the time and energy to do something like that, but as the D&D groups, so another thing that I haven't talked about in playing, but I started running a Candlekeep game with Matt, Elena, our friend John, and actually have Bryce in it. And that book is not written as a true module. It's very an adventure per level given a book, but I've created they're like an investigation unit hired by the librarians of Candlekeep to explore dangerous material and acquire things and do whatever. So it's taking this more kind of free form, loosely connected narratives from the players, and that's how I'm trying to frame it, because I'm not ready to do like a full no holds barred West Marches style campaign. But
it gives, all right. I mean, we could probably have a whole episode on it, right? I think you could do it. It feels like there could be a way where you do it where it's actually less work, right? Where you have like a set of material, like a really built out world, and then you just take slices of that for an episode, right?
So something to think about. Someday, maybe in the future, I'll use my Sundering campaign world for this in a random part of it as a, get 10 players and see who we get week to week. All right. We'll stay on the GM, but this doesn't have to be role playing. I think, Josh, this might be one you prepared. But the question is, what are some things you try to do when running a game with people you might not know to make it enjoyable for everyone? So we've talked about the con experience, and I think this is really the road this goes down, because it's not often outside of a convention you're playing with a group of strangers. But I know I think pretty much all of us, with the exception of maybe Bryce, have run like a con game, but Bryce has had the Age of Sigmar kind of tournament organizer and ringer experience. So I think there's some comparison there for how you make the game enjoyable for someone that you may not know, or how do you get in an argument with someone you don't know because they're an overbearing neckbeard. But I'll open the floor for that one, and I'll actually start. I think that the key is preparing a good game, having a good outline framework. Because what you don't want to do is sit down and just say, I'm not really sure how this works. Let's give it a go, and be uncertain and be, kind of like ill prepared. So I think it's the work beforehand that helps a lot. And then it's being willing to teach, to go back to the GNOME code that you mentioned, just a few things about, learning, teaching, and then, seeing where people are at and helping them some of the initial turns of the game, or, first few interactions, helping walk them through some possibilities is important. Josh, any thoughts of yours there?
I'll bring it to attitude. Like, if you're friendly, whether you're running the game or whether you're a player, and you're willing participant, and you're willing to help and teach and whatnot. I think that goes a long way in making everyone feel comfortable at the table, and make everybody want to be there. And there's a lot of different avenues to this question, right? But I'll take it from just a positive attitude standpoint. Like, that's I think that's paramount.
Troy, any thoughts from your standpoint?
A lot of, people, I've pontificated about Space Hulk and everything I've learned from 20 years of running that game. And again, it's been a big learning experience. But I think if you kind of just take it of like when you sit down and playing any kind of, whether a con game, and we've all done that. I think a little bit like you were saying, Josh, just like there's some sometimes it's basic social norms that you need to like, and God bless all wonderful gamer people, but they tend to be sometimes super introverted. Like sometimes it's just like, can we just like introduce ourselves like at the table?
Right. Yep. Just a quick around the table.
Just like quick around the table. And again, it's kind of like, okay, now everybody's real people, and I don't have to say, hey, you, I can go, oh, Josh, it's your turn, or Josh, or Josh, I'm helping you, right? Hey, have you played,
right.
Kind of things like that. So I think there's, it's kind of just creating that positive attitude, some basic social norms a lot of times. And then figuring out where that line is on, especially again, if you take it in just like, hey, we're all coming together to play a board game, and it may be a bunch of random people, that line around helping without over helping. Right.
Yeah.
And understanding, like, it's kind of funny. I'll go back to sports, and I don't know, Bryce, if it's like, when I play volleyball, and I played volleyball at a very high level, I coached at a high level. When I would go play rec ball, I would never coach anyone. I would never tell, unless they asked me, unless they, knew, or they wanted ever, because you can get, and I've seen the other ones where other people are like, oh, you're not doing this right, and they're like, these persons are just here to have fun.
Yeah.
They're not here for you to give them a lesson in whatever the sport is. And so that's something I've taken again from sports, is the same thing. Like I said, in a board game, you can offer and you can like whatever, but you shouldn't like, I think sometimes you see that people are almost overly helpful.
Yeah.
And trying to teach a new person a game, or you're not doing it right, or what's the strategy, or we're not going to like, we're just here to have fun. So
yeah, if somebody's stuck, I like to try to give options like, well, you could do this, or this, or, you know, whatever, leave it open-ended so that they can make their own decision. Yeah.
Bryce, how about from the like the AOS or the miniature gaming standpoint, tournaments, or, you know, in a shop playing with somebody new to kind of make it, you know, a more enjoyable or more accessible experience?
Yeah, I always start by having just kind of a little conversation at the beginning to try to get a feel for what aspect of the game they're interested in, because there's kind of like the three really broad categories, right? The hobby side of that hobby, the competitive side of the hobby, and the narrative side of the hobby. And then when you know that, you can kind of play with that, because I think everyone, whether you're a hardcore gamer or that just is there to win, or someone that is just there to have fun, you have a connection to your army, and in your head you have this concept that why you put it together. So I like to, you know, have challenge people to duels and make the game fun and on the table, and give them opportunities to, especially when you're in the ringer role, because you're playing the people who have the worst record at the tournament, or whatever it might be, to give them an opportunity to really have that model that they love shine, or that tell that story that they're looking to tell. So I find it really helpful to just have that little conversation to get to know the person and know why they're there, and usually then we spend more time in the game talking and kind of shooting the crap than worrying too much about the rules and how many inches we have to move.
Excellent. I think there's a good segue to this next topic too, from how do you make it more enjoyable to what are some things that you've experienced or could experience in a game, or even a gaming group if it's an RPG, or a gaming club if it's miniature games, whatever it might be, that shuts you down the most, like that make you want to check out or make you want to stop playing? Is it, in kind of broad categories there, the rules, overly focused on how things work, and that the attitudes of the people you're playing with, the themes of the game, the mechanics, what are some things personally that just shut you down or turn off the interest in participating in various games or gaming groups?
We're gonna make you go first time.
So in person, role playing is cell phones or not active engagement. I get taking a break, but see this at cons, more often than not, but it's that somebody just appears to totally be checking out and not staying engaged. And to me, gaming, I'm pretty hardcore. I'll play games for 24 hours straight and be all in, or go to a tournament and play 3 long games and then, just be focused. And I think, I don't want to call it disrespectful, because you might have something very important. There might be, a message from a family emergency or what, so I don't want to say phones go in a basket and nobody gets it, like that type.
But I think, again, with the social, there's a way to do that though.
Yeah.
There's a way to say, I need to step away. There's hey, I got it. You just ignite, instead of disengaging and everyone kind of, right, has no context. Again, I've seen it work well, right? Where somebody just kind of can quickly say, oh, I have to take this, or this is whatever, or excuse me, they apologize. Sorry, I have to do this. I'm still here. I'm listening. Right. Simple things that can help you do it, right?
Little cues. Yeah. And I think that behavior at a tabletop, if I'm GMing, we've done a lot over the last year and a half, and even before that, because of people in different locations of Discord, but I can tell when somebody's not engaged, and it's not always the same person, and might even be one of you guys once in a while, but I can tell
How
when a
dare you.
player when a player is not actively engaged, and it bugs me a little bit more than it probably should. Like, and it's not like I'm Matt Mercer. I'm not, an expert or a performer like doing this. I'm not like, hey, look at me. I'm telling you a story. Let me entertain you, because that's not the type of play I like. But like that probably is what irks me the most. Like if I can just tell somebody is not engaged in the game that I'm running, and part of it is because I start assessing myself. I'm very like critical, of what I'm doing. Like, well, why am I boring you? What am I not
Sure.
providing?
Yeah.
Does the story suck? Is this encounter lame? What am I doing wrong that is making you not care about what's happening in the game? And then when I'm a player, it's, the same. I want to show the same respect to my GM, and I'm guilty of it too. There are times playing Mage with Paul where I see a text pop up and I check it, and I feel bad, but like, it's just kind of that preparing yourself mentally for a few hours to focus on what the game at hand. In AOS tournaments, there's the guys that like, they're just not interested in interaction. They want to do their stuff and then walk away or fiddle with their phone while you're doing your stuff. Like, I don't know. That's probably the number one for me.
That drives me nuts. The phone people at tournaments. And then this is something I recently just encountered, is the significant other at a tournament sitting next to you, and you're just engaged with the significant other the whole time, ignoring the person on the other side of the table. And that I can't believe that people would think to do that.
No, I'm going back a little bit, but I had the same thing with a 40K where it wasn't it was just a friend. Like his friend came to watch whatever, and the guy basically he talked to him all the time and never just kind of rolled dice and pointed at me, like didn't engage with me at all. He talked to this friend all the time, oh, look at how I didn't, he was playing the game. It just, he was not, he like didn't interact with me except to like, hey, I killed that model, right?
I think I'm usually rude to my friends that come up to me when I'm playing a game, or I'm like, yeah, or it's like super short answers, like, leave me alone. I'm trying to give this guy my time or girl my time. And so I usually, sorry if I'm ever rude to you guys, but it's usually like, get away.
Yeah.
How about anything else, Josh?
For me, it's attitude. Yeah. So it kind of dovetails a little bit off of what you guys are saying, but and it kind of off my last answer, so I apologize. But yeah, the more really engaging or friendly or whatever at the table people are, the more enjoyment I get out of the game. Even if I lose, like I'd rather have a fun experience with someone and get crushed than totally trounce over someone and know that nobody had fun, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'll just kind of add, in not maybe non-miniature kind of stuff, is there's been very few, luckily, right, on like a con game, and it's been what I think Ty, you had mentioned, is just the person who's actually running it. You can tell actually put little or no effort into it, right? And again, it's a little bit deflating. You sit down and they're like, oh, well, here's what we're gonna do, and I'm not quite sure how to whatever, and that's initially you're just kind of deflated, like, oh no, yeah. And every once in a while, like, you actually salvage those things because maybe the group actually kind of together, they're like, all right, well, the guy who's running the game doesn't know anything, but we all know stuff, so let's make it fun for us, right? So I've seen it where we've salvaged a game in some respects like that. But then there's other times like, oh, this doesn't go. How can we turn this 4-hour slot into a 2-hour slot and go do something else more fun, right?
Well, so that's an interesting point, and I will say there was one time where the rules of a game shut me down to the point where I needed an out and I had to leave. And that was at Nexus a few years ago, where Brian Nairo and I got sucked into that crazy guys
the plane game,
World War II plane game. And we were just looking at each other as he's telling us how things happen, and then saying, oh, but no, then my plane does this, and flipping through his binder, and where I was so confused and lost. And I hadn't had that much to drink at that point. I was probably 4 beers in, where Brian and I could not find a quicker way away from that game, that demo. It was just so convoluted and weird. And
I mean, when your game has a binder of rules, like a full-on like giant binder, and I don't think that was the only one. I think there was multiple.
I have serious like PTSD to that game in that moment. And I think that's the only time the rules of a game have shut me down to the point where I could not fathom another 5 minutes at that table.
And I don't want to pick on anything. There is this weird, I just called them weird and I shouldn't have, right? There is this very historical simulation kind of group. I don't know if you brush up against it every once in a while. I think this guy seemed like a little bit, although there might have been something else going on with somebody with a little bit of too much detail or something. But I've had that too, where I'd like playing historical game and I went and it just like the guy running it, like everything was just, super detailed. And this is like a Zulu attack kind of thing. Could have been a really fun scenario about getting ambushed and trying to get your guys through a Zulu attack. Instead, it was just this bog of not knowing, you couldn't do the right thing because you didn't know the rule. And he kept, you should have known that these guys are in the grass and you should have had a scout out there to find it. And like, well, this is the first time I'm playing like it. But it, and I don't know, I think there is this kind of historical miniature, like super rules for people who really love it. Like they love it, but they're immersed in it. And it just doesn't translate to people who are new, who are just coming into it. Like
an XY axis of the more in-depth historical miniature and the more complexity and just needing to cross-reference and cross-index the rules to make sense of the game. Like there's a line. There's a direct correlation there. Yeah. So that's rules for me. Going back to that moment, I want to like call Brian and say, hey, do you remember that one time at Nexus that we played a historical air combat game and I think we had to make up an excuse to like end it, or we like flew our planes into each other knowing that we would then blow up. Like there was some just quick exit where we had to pull the cord and just get out. As you guys were all like just watching us look miserable and I think enjoying the miserable experience we were having.
Yeah, well, I think I was running Space Hulk and you guys were kind of touring around or whatever and got caught up in
the orbit. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. That wow. That Nexus was something else.
There was we should know the year because it was a classic at the Hyatt in Milwaukee.
Yeah. I think I got a picture of that interaction too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We'd have to find it. There's an old episode, I think, where we relive that. So.
Yeah, it might have even been before Playin and Slayin.
Right, it might be an old.
Then it might have been a Games Booze and the Art of. All right, next. So a while back now, Troy, you posted this, and I don't have the credit of who.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where it came from. It was this, and maybe I'll give a little context, right? This is kind of in the scheme of what there was something that came out that was called "There Is No They," and it was really a response. It was I believe it was a Kickstarter kind of update, and at the bottom of the update of and I can't remember exactly which game it was or whatever. He just kind of at the end, the person kind of had this thing that just said an open letter just said, "Hey, there is no they." Like when you're talking about. They're trying to screw us. They're not, whatever.
I'll read. I think it's important that for context, this is the statement, and we'll talk a little bit about this because I think it's that thinking of a group or a designer as a they, this like lurking kind of shadow organization that's out to take your money. But it reads, "I have one small request. Don't call us they in the comments. It really bothers me. Don't call us they." When you write they should X or I cancel my pledge if they don't Y and so on and so forth. There is no they. There is no secret smoking man. There is no secret villain like in a James Bond movie trying to make you mad and rob you. There is no they. There is me and my team, young, amazing, passionate people, 200% dedicated to this campaign, staying here all day long, every weekday and every weekend, adjusting the campaign and tweaking it for you. So I mean that, you know, the concept of Kickstarter and different projects is important, because I agree with, and I'll share my thoughts. I agree with this to some extent, and I disagree with this in other places. I think there are companies that I very much enjoy and have some excellent design folks, but companies using Kickstarter as a vehicle, they don't really need to use any longer. It's not to prioritize funding for a small independent project. It's not. It's just how the company chooses to do business, almost as a pre-order, and you know, mass produce a game and get a huge amount of marketing from the Kickstarter and launch it. And I mean, I play a ton of CMON games, but they're a company to me that has advanced well beyond the business need to do a Kickstarter, and has the capital to fund their own setup and do their own pre-order system. So when I use the term they for a Kickstarter project, you know, they just do this as a gimmick, or they just want to get my money. I think it's accurate for CMON and companies like that. Now, I think a recent one that is very important. So Isaac Vega and Lindsay, can't think of her last name now, started a small game company and did a Kickstarter for Keystone North America. Successful Kickstarter, but you know, not like a $2 million return, but an incredible game designer, and both of them are good designers with a cool idea for a company. Now, I think it would be a discredit to refer to them as they in this secret wanting to take your money. Mm-hmm. No, they're an independent duo that are trying to start something new, don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're sitting on to start up, using Kickstarter for a launch, as they need to. So I think there's that David and Goliath kind of,
Yeah. Yep. And I think the company is called Rose Gauntlet.
Yeah. I was gonna say Rose Guild.
Yeah, it was rattling around in my head, and then it clicked. So yeah, but yeah, exactly. Like the giant companies versus the little people, right? The smaller companies. I think there's a perfect place for a they versus people that are dedicated to just trying to get this thing going.
Yeah, and I totally agree. When my mind went, it's like you kind of have the CMONs, right? Mm-hmm. And then you kind of have other people. It may be interesting, maybe for Bryce, is like Awakened Realms is interesting, right? They're in that, but because they right?
are they.
I'll challenge that a little bit, right? I think if you look at Awakened Realms, yes, they kind of have that's their business models. We're going to keep doing Kickstarters. But I think, I don't know, you look behind the scenes, they're not that many people. They're not that, and each one of those projects kind of has a very finite set of people that are working on them to get done. And they have different challenges. Now, whether, have they learned anything over time? And maybe they shouldn't have as many challenges as they have, but maybe some of that is because they are not huge, right? Now they're growing and they're starting to, they may become a CMON in someday, but I think that's also a little bit of maybe some of that messaging is like, I think people if you don't know a lot, like you may just assume here's this big company. They have a $1 million or whatever, $100,000 Kickstarters. They must be some big company. They must have, right. And you look behind the scenes and we've, know enough people in some industry, like some of these companies are not that big at all. Right.
Yeah.
and it is
3 or 4 folks in a two-room apartment using their garage to store stuff. I mean,
yep. And it's not a direct well, comparison, but I don't know if you watch like Wormwood and their vlog, I think it's always interesting, again, how transparent they are, which is amazing. But you see a little bit of the, like, day to day, they have to make decisions. The roadblocks that come into them, and they have to decide what to do. And they know that this decision is never going to make everyone happy. They're always making a choice between what's best for the company. How do we actually make sure we can deliver what we're going to deliver we know that there's going to be some people who are not going to be happy, and how do we just deal with that and move forward? And these companies are these small game companies are doing that same thing every day, knowing like, okay, how do we balance this stuff?
Well, I think the other thing that drives me nuts, and this just might be me being hypercritical of people, there's this weird sense of entitlement that I think gamers, more than anything that I've seen, get about kickstarting something or, you know, purchasing a game, where there's this like ownership mentality in the IP or in the product. I see it a ton. It's all over the place with Games Workshop, 40K and AOS players, like feeling like they own what the game is. And I get it. It's important, and it's a big part of your life, a lot of time and dedication, but that is not equivalent to actual ownership, being a stockholder, being an employee of a company, being whatever it might be, where there's ownership, you know. And workers, at the risk of sounding like a socialist or a communist, you know, the production worker, there's an ownership in your product. I think, you know, there's
a pride.
Yeah, there's, you made this, you designed this, you did that. Purchasing a game does not give you the same level of ownership or investment.
Yeah.
You want to truly be an owner of a product, invest actual money in the company, and take ownership of profits and business decisions. Backing a Kickstarter, I'm sorry, you know, customer A on the internet,
right,
doesn't give you the right to disparage and like be critical because of business decisions the company makes, or rules decisions the company makes. And you know, hot take, like if you don't like it, don't buy the game, don't play the game. And I hate being that guy that says, if you don't like it, there's the door. But really, like, if you don't like it, why do you keep doing it? If it's that big of a problem, there are thousands of other choices, and there are other, like, hundreds of different ways you can go with your consumer dollar to waste the time of putting comments in a Kickstarter thread about what the company is doing, and or, you know, launching a flame war online. Like,
and what's worse is when they have the dollar back, you know,
just a comment.
Yeah, where hey, you know, throw in $1 and then you can watch it. But those are the biggest flamers, right?
Yeah, there is. I get. Yeah, I mean, you try. It's one of those things that just like YouTube comments. Yeah, how Kickstarter comments, like how far down that thread do you ever want to go? And like, it's a train wreck in some respect. But I think there was a recent one. It was just actually a 3D printing one, and I was amazed that they actually got at how much they actually took in the feedback. Because I like, oh, this is a pretty good, straightforward campaign. Looks pretty happy. It's good. There was some comments in there, and I, again, give them a ton of credit. They took a lot of the feedback in. They revamped it. They added new and something. I'm like, I don't like. Wow, I felt above and beyond. Like, I didn't think you guys needed to do that. Like, you were doing well, but again, it was cool that they were actually taking the feedback and saying, "Oh, we can make this better. This is you know."
And I think there's a distinct difference between feedback too and criticism, or like just attacking methodologies or whatever. You can disagree with the politics of a company, and you can say that. You can share your thought. I'm never going to say be quiet, don't talk. Like, you've got a platform, use it for what you want to use it for. But I think soliciting feedback and asking your customers, what do you think about this, is one thing a company can do. But like, that doesn't empower the customer. to feel like a decision maker.
Right.
And I think people lose sight of that sometimes. So
Well, it's the same thing at work, and that I try to do with my niece all the time. She complains about stuff. If you're just complaining to complain, stop. If you're gonna complain, have a solution or something that actually makes sense as an alternative. Don't just say, "Oh, Beastmen are a terrible army. They should be half the price and count as 43 models instead of one," or something stupid like that. Like, just actively think of a way to make it better and share that in a way that's not an attack, right? Like, it doesn't have to be words that I won't say to make a company listen. Those are the comments they're never going to listen to. Put time and thought behind a message and send it, and that kind of feedback is the right kind of feedback. It's one of my biggest pet peeves in the world is the internet platform to allow people to just be toxic and rude and hateful to everything with no repercussion.
Yeah. And I mean, if that's what makes you happy, cool. I mean,
that's what the block button's for.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other thoughts in that one? There is no they. All right. Then I wrote this down because I wanted to have a question and I wanted to leave myself an opening. So I will claim this one. I basically said random tie question without prep or much thought. I think we've talked about an interesting gamut here, but what, and I have this question. I'm pretty excited to talk through it. And it's kind of one of those, imagine yourself as one of these things, and which would you rather be, and why would you rather be that? So your choices are comic book hero, sci-fi space opera like TV series character, movie action hero, or just a regular person in a fantasy world like Tolkien or Name of the Wind, but you're just a regular person in that world. So comic book hero, action movie hero, character in a space opera style sci-fi TV series, or just a regular person in one of these kind of magical fantasy worlds. And then why would you rather be that?
Regular person.
In a fantasy world?
Yep.
Why?
Because I'm just a regular person. I don't want to be an action hero. I don't want to be a superhero. I don't want to be anything like that. I just want to be a regular dude.
So you just want to work and grind away.
Yep.
Have a family. There's dragons and crazy sorcery and not be a part of it. Just like,
I mean, know about it. Maybe you catch a glimmer every once in a while, or you hear a cool story. I don't want to be leading it.
But you want to be ransacked and perhaps killed when the invading army comes across.
I'll stand my ground with my pitchfork.
All right. Regular guy.
Regular dude.
In a fantasy world.
That's me.
Bryce, how about you?
There's no doubt about it that I would choose to be a comic book hero, but like a Marvel comic book hero, because DC comic book heroes are stupid.
Wow,
shots fired. Batman, but yeah, that universe is just it's too unbalanced. Wow. The great thing about Marvel is the powers of the normal superheroes are limited and clear and obvious weaknesses.
Silver Surfer.
There's no Superman.
Silver Surfer.
Yeah. Thor.
I said the Thor has plenty of weaknesses.
He's a god.
He's too handsome.
He's too handsome. His hammer's too strong.
Yeah.
So comic book hero. Any ideas? Okay, so let's take it a step further. Let's pull this thread a little bit. What are like 2 powers your comic book hero would have?
Oh wow, this is such a challenging question. I would need to be able to fly. I'd like to be able to fly. And then I'd like to be Kilgrave, but not bad. I would do good things with my power. He makes people, for those who don't know, he's kind of mind control, but he makes them believe horrible things are happening. And I would like to make people, like in struggling situations, like someone who's sick not feel as bad.
All right.
Like just some regular guy
Flight
in a
and-
fantasy world, and you'd make them feel.
Yeah, I'd make them feel like they saw a dragon on the horizon
That's awesome.
when their village was being burned and looted.
I like that.
Troy, how about you?
I am going to go with the space opera person.
So one of the characters in a
In a space opera. Because maybe, I don't know, the future space could be better. Hopefully I'm not going to be in a super dystopian future space opera thing. I'm not going to be some belter out in the expanse.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'm more of I don't know.
You think you'd be like a crewman on the ship, or do you think you'd be more like a denizen of one of the bars in like Mos Eisley, or like what? Where do you see yourself fit in?
Yeah, I think it's you're like serving on some, whether it's a civilian crew or whatever military, whatever it looks like, or government crew or something in the future. Hopefully, seems like that could be somewhat exciting. And
you guys just gave me your character sketches for an open Savage World style campaign where your heroes from different multiverses brought into the one space to overcome something. The regular guy from Fantasy World, the comic book hero, and then the space opera.
That means Ty, we left for you the motion picture action
hero.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I go. Just because I've been playing a lot of this is going to sound ridiculous. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone, like for the last year and a half of the pandemic. And I've got this idea of like how awesome it'd be to jump out of an airplane, parachute down, and then pick up like guns and run and gun your way across like the terrain. And I see like Rambo, and that'd be pretty cool to be in a Fast and the Furious 10, or like, but you're actually that guy. You're able to like, drive cars ridiculously, and like any weapon you pick up, you're just an expert with, and you can jump off of a skyscraper onto a helicopter and have no fear that you're going to make it. Hang on by like 2 fingers and be able to pull yourself up. That'd be pretty awesome.
You just want to be Jason Statham in every movie he's ever been in?
Yeah. I'll be Jason Statham any movie he's been in. Yeah, that works.
I'm going to see Fast and the Furious 9 tomorrow, so super hyped up.
Oh man, Will Conway can quote almost every Fast and the Furious movie, like from start to finish.
That's bananas.
Him and his buddy Tony can literally just back and forth almost the entire movie. It's
bananas.
It's pretty wild. All right. So I think unless anyone else has a walk-on question or topic for the end of the meeting, that would be our back and forth. Troy, I'm going to give you 7 points. Bryce, you get 12 points, and Josh, you get 15 for being the regular guy, but you lose 9 for your answers for the other questions, so you end up with 6. So Bryce, you win the Around the Horn segment. Troy and Josh are now on mute. Bryce, you get 30 seconds to address the audience before we move to the wrap up and news and events.
Yeah, I'd just like to, thank my dogs for giving me the courage to make it through this segment. Loki spilled water on me in the middle of this, and I even managed to make it through with that. So it's just, I'm blessed. Thank you to all those who agree with this decision, which is clearly everyone listening. And I love you, Stu.
Awesome. We all love you, Stu.
Oh,
hey, you're supposed to be muted.
He just took it off. He just took the mute off.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for the main segment of the show. I think what's pretty exciting is we've got some actual upcoming events here in the second half of this year. We're starting to see signups go live for a few tournaments that we are excited to attend or plans develop. So I think this may not be in chronological order, but we'll kind of touch each of these in the next few months into the fall. So NashCon coming up right around August 19th, 20th. Bryce and I are formulating our plans to make a road trip and go down there, play some AOS with our friends for that tournament that David Griffin runs with awesome terrain and the schemes, which are a super nice twist. But I'll be interested to see what he does for, 3.0. And it looks like it's going to shake up, traditional scoring quite a bit. So I'm really interested to see what he opts to do for NashCon, which has always been a pretty unique way of scoring and playing with the schemes and the primary objectives. So that tournament's coming up. Shortly thereafter, I know September, you've got Gen Con, which, for lack of a better word, seems to be pretending life is normal at Gen Con with no real focus on protocol.
But I don't even know what it's. I don't know. I'm gonna go. Ben and I are gonna go, and like whatever, we're gonna goof around for 4 days. But the question is like, I don't know. Like, there's not gonna be a huge hall, but there's gonna be some vendor hall, and they really haven't. Who knows what events are gonna show up? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll need you to provide an update.
I'll be the man on the ground.
Then as we move into, so the weekend before that Gen Con weekend, Brew City Brawl 3. So Brendan of Cubic Shenanigans fame and the former unseated Lord of Death runs a tournament this year. I know he's looking to do kind of big game style, where that'll be in 3rd edition, 2,500, 3,000 points. I think he's kind of waiting to lock that in for sure. But right now, slated to be a big game, 3,000 points. Signups, are they tomorrow? Is that right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
So for anyone listening, it'll be too late to sign up. So hopefully you got Brendan an email and a PayPal if big games are your thing.
Or get on the wait list.
Wait list always seems to move pretty quick and people get in. And then as we look into October, we've got Gamehole Con the same weekend as Dragonfall. So Dragonfall, I know Mark Ramchek, a good friend of ours and kind of local Milwaukee gamer, is running the AOS tournament at Dragonfall. Bryce, are you playing in that?
I am.
All right. Bryce is going to win Dragonfall. He's going to 5-0 it with a filthy list.
And Dragonfall's in Lake Geneva this year, right?
Yeah, it moved up to Lake Geneva, yep.
And then after he wins the tournament, he's going to start giving Age of Sigmar lessons. He's going to charge you $50 an hour, and he'll also teach you how to paint, but that's $100 per hour. So you can become an all-around tournament champ with Bryce's Zero to Hero AOS course. It's a 6-week intensive training camp. So you got to be prepared, dedicate time and energy and money to Bryce.
You got to be willing to sleep in a sleeping bag on his floor for those 6 weeks.
Yeah, and then
in the basement.
Yep.
And then when he goes 3-2 at a subsequent tournament, he'll brag about how great he is, and it'll be really cool to see Bryce do that. So I'm excited.
But I take a fun list.
Yeah, you'll take a fun list. So you've got a way to fall back and say, well, who's going to go 5-0 with this list? I love that. That's like an inside joke that only maybe 5 people will get. So Dragonfall, Bryce playing, Mark running. Troy, I think you're going to go down for a day or two.
I'm waiting to see how the 40K stuff kind of develops. But yeah, I may split between the two on do Gamehole early in the weekend and Dragonfall in the weekend, Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, so then Gamehole Con, same weekend. Matt and Elena are planning on coming in. We got a Airbnb about 5 minutes from the convention center, so it'll be like real world Gamehole. We'll see how that goes. I'm super excited to see those guys again, play games, get into the Atlantic Energy Center. Hopefully play some RPGs, see some panels. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think Gamehole Con is doing the right thing. I'll get political here for a moment, but they are doing mandatory vaccination, proof of vaccination for attendees. So they are not going to do masks, but they are going to be checking and validating vaccination. And I think that's a unique approach. I'm not seeing that from a lot of cons, but it's kind of what they have decided to do to feel that they can put on the safest show. So, good props to Alex and company at Gamehole Con for doing that. It's not an easy decision, I'm sure, but I think their statement was well worded and well thought out. I'm wondering, with him having being an attorney, and when you look at liability and what else is included there, to be very clear in that, how much of that played into it. But so Gamehole Con and Dragonfall, I want to say that's what, October 22nd ish.
Yeah, it's kind of
the week before Halloween.
That sounds right.
And then
on that topic, really quick, Ty, Pride Fest in Chicago did that this weekend. They required either proof of vaccination or a rapid test done in the last 24 hours to be able to come into
the premises. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think personal views aside, I think that's kind of what we're going to start seeing in some of these spaces until it's truly done and gone, is proof of vaccination or different protocols. So Holy Havoc sign-ups coming up maybe by the time we get this out there, July 1st, for Steve Herner's incredible team event down there in, I can't think of the suburb now. Is it Naperville? Naperville. Yep. So that'll be really cool. I think all four of us are going to try to get in and play. So Bryce and I, and then Troy and Josh, to flex our narrative muscles and get you two to your first Holy event, and then enjoy that. So I know we'll be at some capacity at all of these events we've mentioned in the coming months. I'm excited to get weekends away and get back to that kind of collegiate style of living for 3 days at a time. Hotel rooms and lots of beer and camaraderie.
I think it's a little bit, again, I guess this isn't too much different than the, whatever we call them, the prior times, old times, pre-times. I don't need some kind of things, right? Things aren't moved too much from their normal, when the normal time would have been in whatever it would have been, 2019 or something. Yeah. Except you have Gen Con plopped in the middle of that. But it seems like it's going to be a very, very busy fall for that kind of the April, September, October. And April, August, September, October.
And an event certainly that is not like a public event, but I want to just spend a minute or two talking about is we've scheduled a Playin and Slayin board game weekend. So found a house kind of in the middle of the state, so it feels far enough away where we're actually going out of town for the four of us to get together, bring some games, and just sit around and hang out for a weekend, kind of like a con weekend, but without the exhibit hall or the events. But try to put together a schedule of games, get a brewery tour in there, and just some meals together and some time, because we've talked about it for years, and finally just did it. Yep. So booked a place, and I'm pretty excited. That'll be I think that's that first weekend in August, kind of the 6th through the 8th. So if you randomly find us somewhere in the middle of Wisconsin that weekend, say hi. But and I think pie in the sky vision is long term. Maybe it expands. If we really have a good time, we find a space. We grow it a little bit to be more. But I'm super excited. I'm constantly harassing you guys about the what to bring list and the itinerary and the Google sheet, so people can keep tabs on what they got to get done for it. But yeah, so that'll be the Playin and Slayin weekender. I can't think of a better Playin Slayin con. The weekender,
I like it.
Weekender, yeah.
So that's gonna do it though for our show today. We look forward to upcoming episode 54. We'll probably record that right before we head head out to an undisclosed location somewhere in the driftless area of the state for our weekender.
Don't give away too much. People are gonna try and find us. So
yeah. Well, it looks like there's like a security fence and sentry towers and proximity mines on the way up the road. So
24-hour guards.
Yeah.
We're going to Waupun. Yep.
Cell Block C gaming weekender. Oh goodness. Well, thanks for listening. I think we went a little bit off the rails in this one more than past episodes, but it was worth it. It felt like a good discussion. So please, download, add us, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, all the different platforms. Send us emails, comments, whatever. If you want to get in on the hydrated, staying hydrated segment, and a personalized shout out, let us know that you listen and like that. Stu, I can't wait to eat cheddar biscuits and drink beer with you in about a month and a half, and meet plenty of new friends. So Playin and Slayin Facebook, at Playin and Slayin Show, Twitter, basementofdeath.com, all the emails, all the fun. But this was great. Nice to be mostly in person. Bryce, soon we'll get you in an actual. I don't know how we're going to set up the camera. This will be. We'll have to do
we'll have to sit school row style.
Yeah,
we'll have 2 in the front, 2 in the back.
And then what do I do with my hands?
Under the table.
No, we're each going to have our own cameras. And
we have our own camera.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll be the next evolution.
Well, we figure out the how we're going to do that. I want the rest of you to keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying. Live from the basement of death in person for the first time in 33 episodes. It is time. To the hundreds of listeners around the world and the 0 listeners watching live on Twitch. This is Playin and Slayin. In the blue corner, weighing 196 pounds, Bryce the Hammer Shoals. Yeah. And in the red corner, weighing in at, how much do you weigh right now, Troy?
215.
215 pounds, Troy the Podfather Weiss. 5 rounds in BOD Fight Federation Championship Wrestling. All right, gentlemen. You've been informed of the rules in your locker rooms before the fight. Keep the hands and feet above the waist. Let's get it on. Bryce doesn't
want to touch gloves.
No,
Look at what an asshole, right? Look, doesn't even want to touch gloves.
And now Discord box. Troy circles to his right, putting in all that time in collegiate level wrestling. We'll see what that does. Bryce was a basketball player. Not a lot of striking in basketball, so it'd be interesting to see how this fight develops, Coop, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to have to bob and weave. And You know, all that stuff.
Are you watching the fight, Josh, or are you texting?
I'm watching the fight on my
boy.
phone.
You're watching the fight on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because it's delayed then.
Bryce does have allies. Yeah.
You don't like that very much.
All right. Are we done
We're
horsing around?
Yep. We can rock it.
So how do